Alright, hello and welcome to the first of hopefully many Linux videos on this channel. I just wanted to give a brief overview on Linux, just as a first video of mine, and a little bit of in-depth stuff as we go. I'm going to skip some of these notes just because not all of it is important. It's just stuff I wanted to write down, I guess. Definition of Linux. So Linux is an open source operating system as opposed to proprietary operating systems like Mac OS and Windows. It's in the same category as FreeBSD, although if you've heard of FreeBSD and you haven't heard of Linux, that's very surprising to me. I'm very surprised. Linux is free. It can be modified by anybody. You can see the source code. It's fucking fire. A little bit of a brief history about it. The origins of it started as Unix, pretty much, developed by Bell Labs 8/AT&T in the 1970s. The GNU project, started by Richard Stallman, was started pretty much to create free programs for the Unix-like operating systems. They created like GNU utils. That's their biggest contribution, I guess, or a huge contribution of theirs. In 1991, Linus Torvalds, among other things, he also created Git, but he created the Linux kernel. Created the Linux kernel, which is the kernel that, when combined with GNU utilities from the GNU project, it formed the first idea, pretty much, of the GNU Linux system. The kernel is Linux. Different distributions are different distributions, each distribution of Linux comes with its own different software, programs, all that shit. Most of the time, each distribution by default at the core will include things like the kernel itself, GNU utils, a package manager of some kind, and other basic software. So for instance, I'm running Linux. Obviously I'm running Debian, so I have the apt package manager. I only installed, when I installed this system, I only installed OpenSSH as the only dependency, so I'm running DWM as my window manager, and no desktop environment. It's pretty sexy in my opinion, but whatever. Moving on. Different Linux distributions, they're like a complete operating system based on the Linux kernel. They bundle different software and management tools inside of them, like we kind of just said. Sometimes they can be classified based on their audience, but I don't really like to classify them that way. I guess like Ubuntu is pretty much the most commonly used for beginner-friendly distros. It's one of the most common ones for beginner-friendly distros, at least that I know of. It's based on Debian, so they both use apt. So does Linux, but Linux Mint. Sorry, got my words mixed up there. Other big one, Arch Linux. That's a huge one. Fedora is also a huge one. Both of those are independent, kind of. Fedora is based on RHEL, Red Hat Enterprise Linux systems. Package manager is DNF. Formerly, I guess it was Yum. Arch uses the Pacman package manager, although if you have Arch Linux and you're watching this video, go fuck yourself. I don't know what to say to you. You shouldn't be watching this video. You already know what I'm talking about, man. Anyways, a little bit of a basic overview of the Linux file system. There's a lot of directories. They're kind of standard throughout most distributions. You're gonna have your home directory and your bin directory and your etc directory and your var directory and your user directory and your temp directory and your dev directory, and also your proc directory, which I didn't include. Those are pretty standard. Home is gonna have like your user, so Klein, that's me. If I go back even more, this is everything. So like I said, we have our proc file. This is a file system that's made on the fly, and it just contains a lot of information about different processes and your system and your information in general. So let's see if I can do this without looking like a dumbass. Hell yeah, that's an example of proc, or yeah, of using the proc directory. So these are the 12 processor cores that I have for my CPU. Anyways, absolute path. So the root is known as that. It's this thingy. So if I want to go to like home, I can do. There we go. Now I'm in home. I could go to user. Now I'm common user. So yeah, I mean, I want to do a longer, oopsies, I want to do a longer form video on file systems because there is a lot of important information that you should know and know like what goes where. But just a brief overview, bin is for essential user binaries. That's where you're going to have like your ls, your cp, your mv. That's where all the source code for that's going to be stored, or the binaries, I guess, are going to be stored. Etsy has system configuration files inside of it. var has variable files such as like logs for different programs. Temp is temporary files. I use it normally as a logging system for some of my programs just because I don't want to have long form logs. We'll get into logging in a different thing when we talk about journal CTL, but that's a different video. User has user binary and application files. We'll talk more about that in depth in another video as well. /dev I could also probably talk more in depth about too, because that has device files for like hard drives and USBs and all that stuff, and it's used in mounting, which I should do a long form video on. Anyways, basic file navigation. Let's talk about that real quick. CD, it's actually a bash built in, so we'll talk about that in a little bit, but that changes your directory, so we've been using that a little bit. I have a directory called Code Workshop, so that's how I would go into it. pwd, print working directory, prints your directory that you're in. ls lists the files and directories of wherever the hell you are. You could have more, you could have less. I could have tree. Oh god, that's going to take forever. Don't worry about that, that's because I have LSD. mkdir makes a directory. So if I go into here, I wanted to show you guys this actually. So for cd, if I cd dot, go into the dot directory, that's just where I am. cd dot dot, that goes back one. So that's kind of how a good way to visualize it, I guess, is literally those two directories. I mean, it's not even visual, that's just how it works. rmdir removes a directory. Never in my life have I used rmdir. It's always rm /rf, which is recursive and force. So yeah, I always use those instead. Alright, let's just go over some common GNU core utilities really quickly. I kind of want to do a longer form video on just them themselves, and we can talk about everything because I'm going to skip some of them, but some of the easy stuff. So ls lists, like we said. cp will copy stuff, so I could copy any one of those things, and then so it would go like cp file name, and then I would go, this would be like path to wherever the fuck I want. Or if I just didn't have that, I would just, you know, it would just pretty much put it in that same directory. Sorry, I'm blanking a little bit over here. MV can be used to move files or directories, and it also can be used to rename stuff. So I'm going to do long form videos on all these because all of these things come with flags. So remove, rm removes files or directories. Touch will create files empty, but you can put any file extension that you want because file extensions are meaningless. Chmod, we're going to skip chmod and chown because we need to do long form videos on that, and I don't feel like explaining that in a short period of time, but it's pretty much just file permissions and ownership stuff, but we'll talk about that later. grep, already used, but got to do a long form video on that because that searches through text files, and it's an extremely useful tool that you should know. I'm just trying to familiarize yourselves with some of these words, I guess. Find is another command that will search for files and directories throughout a designated area that you give it, or parameters that you give it. So we're going to go through long videos for all those, and like I'll do parameters and show you how they all work. Quickly, I want to go to the man page. So if you're interested in learning any of this stuff yourself, man page, the man command will bring up the man pages. Sorry, man. That's the manual on the man page. You know, you gotta read how man works before you really can go and use man. I feel like, you know. Sorry. But yeah, if you want to learn about any of those commands, most of them, especially the GNU core utilities, they're going to come with a man page. So like, definitely the common stuff that you're supposed to know, it's going to have a man page. Maybe some of like the random custom shit that you install off of GitHub that might not have it. That might not have a man page. If you're lucky, they made a man page. I need to start doing that, but most of the time they didn't make a man page. All right, talk about some common shell built-ins. Echo, will echo whatever the hell you say. I can echo environmental variables too, so that's my terminal, stuff like that if I want to. CD, change directories, like I said, it's a shell built in, so it's not a external program. So if I try to like alias CD to anything else, it's not going to work because it's a built-in. Export will set or export environmental variables. I don't ever use that, and I'm not going to start using it right now. I mean, I do use it sometimes if I really ever have to, but most of the time I really don't have to. The like Bash is pretty good at dealing with that itself. Unless I like want to change something, but I really normally if I want to change environmental variables, I'll just do it for like that one specific terminal session. I don't want to ever like change it permanently. You know what I mean? That's kind of an example, I guess. Is like I don't want to change this permanent. I don't want it to be like that permanently. So I don't know. I do use it when I'm programming and like inside of programming code and like Bash scripts that I build, but I don't ever really just use it on my day-to-day life in the terminal. Alias, same story. Don't ever use it in my day-to-day life in the terminal, but I will use it in obviously some of my codes. So Bash alias, obviously I'm gonna be using it here. These are all my aliases. It creates shortcuts for commands or whatever. So I'm saying like ls, alias ls goes to lsd automatically. lt, lsd -- tree. So that's a specific thing for lsd. But yeah, python 3. Source. So let's see. Say I change. Let's see. What should I change? I don't know. It's just alias. LOL. Alright, so we did that, right? If I write this, nothing's gonna happen, right? Now if I do source -rc, now what this does is executing that file and the commands inside of that file. So it fixed my PS1 script. But now if I write lol, it does that. Really pointless. Oh, shit. Quite pointless. And the best thing is, it's gonna stay there until I source it again. So since I'm showing you this, another shorthand for source, instead of writing source, you can just write dot. Just dot --rc, same thing as source. It's gone. Oh my god, it's not gone. What have I done? Sorry, I need to start a new terminal session. Thank God. All right. Caught me off guard for a minute. But yeah, I think that's all I'm going to talk about today. Hopefully this is a little bit shorter than my first attempt. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.